4, 11 unit 1 topic historical viewpoints, right, or historical review, in which we talk about political and social change. So what I find out that the history of drama and theatre is connected, deeply connected with the history of human civilization from the old times to the modern age. Isn't it? The stage has served as a mirror that reflects a people's lives. Isn't it? Their beliefs, their changes in the societies, every major political or social change has actually influenced. Political and social change influence what? Has influenced the kind of a plays written, isn't it? The subjects they dealt with and the way they were performed. In simple terms, drama grows and changes whenever people's lives, right? The way the old movies were created, the way the old movies have the story, you won't find out the same kind of movies occurred in the 90s. And the kind of movies occurred in the 90s, you won't find out in the 21st century, right? So in that case, means it is a clear idea that in simple terms, drama grows and changes whenever people's lives change, right? So politics or ways of thinking also change, isn't it? So that is what the first idea you can draw when you talk about drama and theatre. Second is called as in ancient drama, around the 5th century, right? Around the 5th century BC, drama developed from religious festival, right? Religious festival that held in honor of Dionysius. Dionysus. Who is the Dionysus? Dionysus is known as the god of wind and fertility. The god of wind and fertility. And these performances, when you talk about religious festivals that held in honor of Dionysus, so the god of wind and fertility, these performances slowly turned into tragedies, right? So, and comedies that why and what the outcome that you draw that explore moral, political, and human themes, right? So, for example, the plays of Sophocles, isn't it? The plays of Sophocles and Euripides. So these two examined the questions of justice. These two examined the question of power, question of fate, isn't it? So, and they pointed the issues that deeply connected to democratic life of Athens. Democratic life of Athens. So therefore, if you talk about that, early theatre became not just entertainment, so what they are, but also a discussion, space for political and moral ideas. What my point? So during the Middle Ages, the church became the central power in Europe, and most places, church, right? So church became the central power in Europe, and most plays were religious, and these were known as what? Morality and miracle plays. Morality and miracle plays performed in churches or public squares to teach people about Christian values. But by the Renaissance period, it means after Middle Age, you find out the Renaissance period, and that comes between 14 to 17, or that continued from 14th to 17th century, right? There was a great social and political awakening, the rediscovery of classical learning, and the rise of humanism changed how people saw themselves and the world. So, theatre shifted from religious subjects to human experiences, emotion, and political issues. If you talk about William Shakespeare, for example, wrote plays that dealt with what? That dealt with the kingship, that dealt with the ambition, that dealt with the betrayal, isn't it? And justice. Issues that reflected the social and political atmosphere of Elizabethan England, isn't it? In the 18th and the 19th century, what happened? Europe experienced the revolution. So, industrialization and the rise of democracy. These changes influenced the drama greatly. Playwrights started writing about the struggles of ordinary people rather than kings and nobles. This was the birth of what? Realism in theatre. Writers such as, Henrik Ibsen from Norway and George Bernard Shaw, G.B. Shah. So they are from England, not England, Ireland. They used the states to criticize unfair social systems, question traditional values, and promote new ideas of freedom and equality. If I talk about Henry Ibsen's, so Henry Ibsen's play is known as A Doll's House. A Doll's House was published in the year of 1879. For instance, it shocked the audience or audiences. Why? Because it portrayed or it narrated a woman to leave her husband to find her own identity. When we talk about A Doll's House, isn't it? So something society considered unacceptable, isn't it? At the time, the stage therefore became a space where social change could be imagined and debated. Now imagine that nowadays when women go outside, women spend the time 9 to 5 job, then they come home, they are equally responsible, the kind of a household job, isn't it? So not only the woman, men do work, isn't it? But in some of the cases, you would find out men do the jobs and come home and do nothing and watch TV. Whereas women do the 9 to 5 job, come home, look after the children, do the household activities, isn't it? It means the job of the woman is never ending, whereas the job of the man ended simply outside. Got my point? So this gives us the idea that what the stage created the kind of a situation which made nothing but a social reform that could be imagined and that could be debated. If the woman can do, then why can't men do? Or why can't men help the woman in the household activities? Isn't it? So by the 20th century, the world had witnessed 2 world wars, isn't it? So not only 2 world wars, revolutions, and major scientific and cultural changes. The theatre responded to this new reality by experimenting with the new forms of expression. Playwright began to explore how war, loss, and alienation affected human life. Because that is what the job of the theatre, isn't it? Because and theatre is performed with a character and characters with the story. And the story is written by the writer, playwright, isn't it? And the playwright begin to explore what? War, loss, alienation. These are the theme presented in their story. They set the plot and make the characters to perform, isn't it? So in that case, let's talk about the Bertolt Brecht, right? Bertolt Brecht. I hope you have read some of the epic theatre. So Bertolt Brecht, or Brecht, we can say Bertolt Brecht. So who is he in Germany? Who used the stage as a tool for what? Political education, isn't it? His epic theatre encouraged audiences not to simply watch the work, not to simply watch the play, but to do what? But to think critically about what? But to think critically about what they saw. Instead of emotional attachment, instead of emotional attaching to the theatre, Brecht wanted people to understand the causes of injustice and the causes of injustice and the causes of change that happened in the human life or in real life, isn't it? So, in contrast, if I say theatre of the absurd, that the writers such as Samuel Beckett and Eugene Ionescu, they used the stage to show what the confusion and the meaningless routine of modern existence. Isn't it? After the destruction of World War II, they believed that what traditional logic and structure traditional logic and structure no longer explain human life. Their plays, whose plays? You talk about Samuel Beckett, Eugene Ionesco, Bertolt Brecht, all these means, playwrights are means, who created the who created the play for the theater. So they believe that the traditional logic and structure means, cannot explain human life, right? So their plays reflected what the political and social delusionment, right? Delusionment of that era, right? So throughout history, the relationship between politics, social change, and theatre has remained strong. Right. What are they? Politics, social change, and theatre. They have remained connected to one another and strong. Theatre often becomes a what a voice for the voiceless, a protest against oppression. Oppression, you understand? OPPRESSION. Oppression is called as abuse, torture. Right. One torturing to the other, considered the other one is the slave to him, isn't it? So our call for change, it shows how people respond to new realities, be it the power of kings or the rise of democracy or the challenges of modern life. The stage is not just a place for actors and stories. So it is a powerful social and political space where human hopes, fears, and struggles, right, come to life. Got my point? Then, if you talk about the next is called as a what do you say that text and performance, isn't it? So, text and performance. What do you mean by text and performance? Text and performance indicates that drama exists in two forms, right? So, what they now one is called as the text, which is a script. The text is called as a script, and the performance. Performance is called as acting on the stage. Understood? What is text and performance? Text is the script, the person who write that, and another one is performance, the actors and actress who perform on the stage, or who's performance on the stage. So, are acting on the stage. So, you can say that the text is what the playwright writes. The text is what the playwright writes, like dialogues, stage directions, and ideas. Dialogue, stage direction, and ideas. The performance is how actors, directors, and designers bring that text to life on stage. It's not only about that actors and actresses. You talk about directors, you say that this way you do it, that way you do it, isn't it? And designers who think about the variety of costumes and the setting, make into a of ordinary to unique, isn't it? So bring that text to life on stage. A single text can be performed in a different ways. So whether you can say a single text can be performed in different ways, means what? It can be performed in a tragic, sad, right, melancholy. So at the you can also say serious. At the same time, it can also performed in a comic manner, comedy. It can also performed in a tragic comedy. Tragic comedy. It means comedy is there, tragedy is there, comedy is there, isn't it? So you can also say that the text can be performed into modernized or traditional, right? So the meaning of a play often changes depending on how it is performed. The actor's expressions, the stage, the setting, and the audience's response. So drama is both literature and art that need to be read and seen. Now, let me give you the answer, an example. Think of a movie that you means, last saw or that you are going to see. So if the story begins with a dense forest, so hilly areas, moving of the stream, right? And lots of people who wear the kind of dresses which is in appearing like 90% of their body is naked, right? Holding the weapon, different types of weapon. Another movie you see that it starts with the thatched houses. Again, uh, roofs are there, trees are there, gardens, paddy, paddy land, right? Or you say that agricultural field, cattle, sheep, all such kind of things are there. Another movie you see that it begins with means, tall buildings, isn't it? Tall buildings, fine cars, uh, urbanage, isn't it? Roads are narrow, means people are wearing with the modern dress, isn't it? Um, in that case, what do you find out? You find out that the first one is something like a very ancient. Second one is called as a, means, again, the rural areas. And the third one is called as urban. Isn't it? How do you draw that? The setting tells you that. The setting. What does that setting point out? The background. The background tells you that okay, this is nothing but a old movie or a very something modern movie, isn't it? So in that case, drama or theater or movie is both literature and art, isn't it? We watch movie for the sake of learning. It's not like dishing dashing, isn't it? Or romantic. So even romantic has also means, nature also of the movie. So I can say that what the performance, the text is what the playwright writes on paper. The dialogue spoken by characters, the stage direction, and the descriptions of settings or action. Isn't it? It is the written version of the play, much like a story or a poem that can be read and that can be studied. The performance, on the other hand, is when this text comes alive on stage uh, through the efforts of actors, directors, designers, and technicians. Isn't it? It is the living, moving version of the written words. It means to be watched and experienced by an audience. So the connection between text and performance is what makes drama special. The playwright provides the blueprint, but it is the performance that turns that blueprint into a complete work of art. For example, William Shakespeare's Hamlet exists as a text that readers can study in a book. However, when actors perform Hamlet on stage, the play becomes a living experience, isn't it? Let's talk about that. If you talk about reading any of the William Shakespeare's book, you find out that the book it's dull, boring. It has a very difficult words which is unable to interpret. But at the same time, means that the same play, if it is performed on the stage or if you watch in the form of movie, what do you find out? You remember it, isn't it? That is why, because what we see, we remember easily than we read. Got my point? But that is called the reading gives you the bit by bit information, whereas the movie doesn't. So that's what I pointed here. Shakespeare's Hamlet exists as a text that readers can study in a book. However, when actors perform Hamlet on stage, the play becomes a living experience. The way Hamlet speaks, the way Hamlet moves, isn't it? So, or even pauses can change how audiences understand the character's emotion and the thoughts. Therefore, the same play can feel entirely different in different performances, isn't it? It seems like you are the only one who can be uh, identified on your experience, whether you are happy, whether you are sad, whether you are dull, whether you are interesting, whether you are energetic, or whether you are dull, isn't it? So your appearance point out that your movement shows that your behavior tells us that, isn't it? So that is why the play can feel entirely different in different performances. Good. A single text can be performed in many ways, depending on the director's version, right, and the context. For instance, you talk about Romeo and Juliet. When we say that Romeo and Juliet, it has been performed as a traditional tragedy. Romeo and Juliet is nothing but a performance as a traditional tragedy set in a, you can say that medieval Verona, right? So, but also as a modern adaptation with the contemporary costumes, settings, and music. The words may remain the same, but the performance style, lighting, costumes, and tone that can change how the story feels and what message it gives. Isn't it? A scene can be played seriously or humorously, depending on the director's interpretation. Isn't it? Let me give you an example of a movie section. So you see the movie Karch, right, which is played by Rishi Kapoor, and it's nothing but a incarnation of Rishi Kapoor because he was murdered by his wife, right, in last birth. In the next birth, he came out and he met the same woman, but the woman was very old and Rishi Kapoor was very young, isn't it? And Rishi Kapoor, when see the poor woman and see the place, he recollected everything. That how did this woman killed me in my marriage and because of my property, right? So he recollected and he took the revenge. That is nothing but a kind of a cut movie name. But the same movie was played when 19, it somehow was the 19th, right? But the same movie was performed again with the same dialogue, same kind of a situation with the Himesh Resmiya, right? During the time of 20th century, isn't it? So what happened? The difference is what setting. The difference was the characters. The difference was the what do you place? The difference is called as all the other things, but the dialogues remain same, isn't it? So that indicates what means you would find out the style, lighting, costume, and tone. Tone, like the tone of Rishika, but the tone of Vimesh Reshmi are not remain same. Right? Can change how the story feels and what message it gives. A scene can be played seriously or humorous, right? Depending on the director's interpretation. You see the same movie which is played in a Kamat Se Kamat Tak. Kamat Se Kamat Tak, Amir Khan and Jui Chawla. It's a kind of a love story, isn't it? But the same kind of a movie you find out in a modern day also, where the hero and heroine uh, was murdered. Dhadak movie, isn't it? Did you see that movie or you didn't? So Dhadak. So what happened actually? The theme is saying love, right? So, but one is called as performed in the anthem, latter in the past, and another is performed in the present situation, modern situation. The same love story is played in a tragedy. The same love story is presented in a comedy. Isn't it? Like you talk about Golmaal. So there are also some movie romantic scenes are there and love is there. Isn't it? So that is why a scene can be played seriously or humorously depending on what? Depending on the director's interpretation. So performance also depends on actors' expression, body language, and the voice modulation. Isn't it? A single line can sound loving, angry, or sarcastic. Isn't it? Depending on how it is spoken. Got my point? Sometimes your teachers tell you, get out from my class. So sometimes they say, you came now? Right. So sometimes also you say that, why did you leave? Isn't it? Now, in that case, a single line can sound loving, angry, or sarcastic. Sarcastic means criticism, depending on how it is spoken. Similarly, the stage design and lighting affect how audience respond. Isn't it? A dim light can create a mood of sadness or suspense. While bright light can make a scene feel cheerful or lively, like I gave you the example of three different scenes. So if you talk about dense forest, the light will be deep. If you talk about rural area, the light will be casted or not that deep, right? So, but if you talk about urban area, it's urban. So, lighted, tall building, shining, isn't it? So cheerful or lively. So the audience too plays an important role in performance, isn't it? In ancient Greek or Elizabethan times, audiences were loud, audiences were interactive, loud, interactive, and emotionally expressive. You find out that in earlier times, means when I would tell my example when I was the movie called Kalhona, which is played by Shahrukh Khan. I cried, right? Really, when literally I cried. Right? I cried because Shahrukh Khan was going to die, right? And despite his excessive love for Pretty Zinta, so he made Saif Khan to, you know, make her husband, isn't it? So that's what is called the emotion because we are connecting to it, emotionally connected. So emotionally expressive that you can say. Well, modern theater audiences are don't write such kind of a things in the exam copy. So I just give you the example for your better understanding. So while modern theater audiences are more silent and observant, now that's the again called as a huge difference. The way we, you know, we make ourselves sit in the cinema hall when the hero enters, or when you find out even also in some of the areas it still occurs. You find out that when Rajnikant enters, so people shouts and people dance and people also come forward and they make a kind of a reciprocal statement. But if in the modern case, people sit in the annex, Inox. People sit in Inox or any of the luxurious place. So do they do that the same thing? No, they are not reciprocal. So they believe that they are civilized, right? They are modern, right? Whereas the people who do that, they are uncivilized. No, isn't it? So it's indicating that the audience are connected, isn't it? So they play an important role in performance. So, we talk about loud, interactive, emotionally expressive, but the audience in the modern day are silent and observant. The response of the audience can inspire actors to change their energy, isn't it? Let's say that if the teacher teaches in the class and the students are not energized enough, and the students are not loud enough, interactive, and emotionally connecting, or called as they are not answering the question, will the teacher get the change of their energy? No, isn't it? So you would find out the energy, tone, or timing make the teacher feel either well or poor perform, isn't it? Making simultaneously here also in the on the stage, the actors performance silently different from another, isn't it? So the difference between text and performance also helps explain how a play can have a multiple interpretation. Multiple interpretation means the way I means imagine that the one who looks at you, you have a different interpretation, isn't it? He looks at me or she looks at me. So you change the mind that maybe it's a love between us. So she looks at me. It's a means something I did wrong to her. That's why she is looking at me. So or her looks means make you feel like what a shy or embarrassment, isn't it? So the thing is that uh, multiple interpretation you can draw from the story performance, isn't it? For example, you talk about Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House. I come to this one again. That can be performed as a feminist drama, highlighting moments of freedom, right? Highlight what? Women's freedom. But at the same time, somebody believes that what it is nothing but a woman's proud or called as a arrogance or called as a woman's, intention to live independent, isn't it? So that's a negative thought, and freedom is something that the moral you want to theme that you want to point out, isn't it? So that is why a psychological study of marriage and self-realization, that two things are necessary. You would find out that some women leave the house, leave her husband, leave her children, uh, means, want to do what? Want to present themselves that they are free and they want to do something unique, right? And they have all kind of a freedom. So, but there are also women who, even if they are oppressed by their husbands or tortured by their husbands, still they want to associate with the family. They look at their children, isn't it? They still love to their husband a lot, isn't it? Two different ideas. So that's what you would find out. Psychological study of marriage and self-realization. The text actually allows for what? The text means I am talking about Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House. The text allows for many meaning, and the performance decide which meaning comes forward. Right? Which meaning comes forward? Like I teach you variety of things. It's up to you that which one you like to take it, whether positive or negative, isn't it? In short, I can say that the relationship between text and performance is what keeps theater alive, isn't it? Text and performance, it's something what keeps theater what alive, and also not always changing, always changing. So the text provides the structure and ideas, uh, and while the performance gives them life, emotion, and immediacy. So this is why drama is both literature to be read and analyzed, and art to be seen and felt. Understand the difference between drama and art. So the beauty of theater lies in this balance. So it is written once, but performed and reinterpreted continuously, endlessly. So each time it creates a new experience for the audience. Understood this? Now, let's come to the next one. It's called as a European drama, realism and beyond. European drama, realism and beyond. When we say that European drama, realism, what is that? Now, realism was a movement. Realism was a movement in European drama. Got my point? So, that tried to show real life on stage, not fantasy or not exaggerated stories. Not fantasy or not exaggerated stories. So, beyond realism, including new styles that came after it. So, in the late 19th century, if you can say that writers like Henrik Ibsen and Anton Chekhov, right? Henrik Ibsen and Anton Chekhov, they began writing plays about ordinary people. So family life and social problems, not kings, not me, not neither kings nor means, isn't it? So realism focused on what's the truth, everyday speech, and authentic setting. Authentic, you understand? Original setting. Setting means a background. So it means on the stage you are performing or creating the situation of hilly or dense forest. But what they try to do now, they focus on truth, everyday speech, and took the place where the drama could be taken. So a living room instead of a palace, isn't it? So latter, playwrights moved beyond realism, exploring the inner mind and psychology, symbolism, and abstract ideas. Let's talk about the example called as expressionism. Right. Now, what is that expressionism? It shows emotions and dreams rather than facts. What is expressionism? It shows emotions and dreams, right, rather facts. Now, if I tell you that you study hard, you do this, you do that, uh, you can be an IAS officer. Now that's the dream I can show you, right? But in the facts, you would find out it's not that easy, not impossible, but not easy. So the fact is something different. So dreams and emotion is something different, isn't it? So that's known as expressionism. But when you talk about absurdism, that shows the confusion and meaninglessness of life. Like I don't know what I'm going to do uh, in my future, isn't it? That's indicating about chaos, no particular discipline. So European drama underwent a major transformation, major change in the late 19th and early 20th century with the rise of realism. Right. So, what is realism? Realism, a movement. So, a movement that wanted to represent real life on stage rather than dream, rather than emotion, rather than fantasy, rather than me, or rather than excessively pointed something, exaggerated emotion. Isn't it? Before realism, most plays dealt with the kings, most plays dealt with the kings, heroes, or romantic adventure in distant lands. Right? The characters often spoke in a poetic language. So, and the stage setting were grand and artificial, isn't it? Now I'm telling the difference, right? So, however, with the growth of science, democracy, and social awareness in Europe, audiences began to demand plays that reflected the real problems of ordinary people. This gave birth to a new kind of a theater that focused on truth, that focused on daily life, that focused on human struggles, isn't it? And this was the age of realism. Understood? Realism. So realism aimed to present life, aimed to present life as it truly was. So, like I said, playwrights like Henry Ibsen and Anton Chekhov from Russia, right? So they are considered the pioneers of this movement. Pioneers means known as the leaders of this movement. So their plays showed characters from the middle and the lower classes dealing with the real social issues such as the marriage, gender inequality, family conflict, and moral hypocrisy. Understood? So moral hypocrisy means something which is called as a backstabbing or called as unethical, isn't it? So, for example, the same story, or Doll's House, which is written by Ibsen, so was published in the 1879 that shocked the 19th century audiences by showing a woman, Nora. Nora is the character. So, Nora, what does she do? Now, she left her husband and the children to find her own identity. And this was revolutionary. Revolutionary means none of the women do like that. Right. So she did it. So this was revolutionary because theater had rarely questioned the traditional family roles so directly before. It means none of the other play did such kind of appearance that this play did. So this was revolutionary because theater had rarely questioned traditional family roles so directly before. Similarly, means when you talk about Anton Chekhov's plays such as the Cherry Orchard, the Cherry Orchard is Anton Chekhov's plays. Not only the Cherry Orchard and Uncle Vanya, right? Uncle Vanya. So they depicted the quiet struggle, silent struggles, so disappointment and the hope of everyday life in rural Russia. These plays avoided dramatic action and focus instead on what? Instead on mood, instead on emotion, instead on human behavior. So making the audience reflect on their own lives. Isn't it? In realist plays, the language was simple and natural. Realism, like in realistic, what happened? The language was simple and natural, like how people actually spoke, how people actually present, how the setting were ordinary rooms or homes, not palaces or castles. Right. Even the costumes and props were realistic. Chairs, doors, tables that belong to a normal household. Actors were expected to perform the naturally, right? So avoiding exaggerated gestures, excessive means drama time, right? Or shouting. So this new realism made audiences feel as if they were looking into the real people's lives instead of watching a staged performance. As the 20th century began, so playwrights started to move beyond realism, exploring new ways of expressing the deeper truths of human existence. They felt that simply showing surface reality, surface means that called as a outer portion, not going deeper into it. Right. Surface reality was not enough to capture the difficulty of the modern world. Means they need to show more. So wars, industrialization, and rapid social change, they created confusion, anxiety, and also loneliness, alienation, separation, emotions that realistic theater could not fully express. And those of the things need to present. So this led to the birth of new movement known as Expressionism and Absurdism. Got my point? So you talk about realism to upgrade it to the expressionism and absurdism. Right. Now, when I say that expressionism, which began in Germany in the early 20th century, right, and it focused on what's showing the inner emotions and dreams of characters rather than external facts. Instead of realistic dialogue or settings, expressionist plays used distorted scenery. Distorted means called as a scenery which is not that good looking or means bad looking, distorted or confusing scenery, symbolic lightning, and exaggerated speech to represent what feelings like fear, feelings like loneliness or anger. For example, in plays like George Kaiser, George Kaiser's from means Morn to Midnight, Morn to Midnight, MORN, Morn to Midnight means morning to midnight. So the stage reflects the character's mental and emotional state rather than the real world. Isn't it? Think of it, your means, presence in the outer world and your presence in inner world in the jail, right? So would be different, isn't it? So beside expressionism, you also find out that in expressionism, symbolism is there. Symbolism also developed as a reaction to realism. So, symbolist playwright believed that reality could not always be shown directly. So, it had to be suggested through symbols, images, and metaphors. Symbols, images, and metaphors. Isn't it? So, they wanted theater to express the spiritual and the mysterious side of life. So, spiritual and mysterious side, like somebody who is crying, somebody who is praying to the God, somebody who is not showing the happiness or sadness, isn't it? For instance, Belgium, Belgian, Belgian playwright, Maurice, you can say Maurice Metternich, right? Maurice Metternich plays like the Bluebird. The Bluebird is nothing but the play which is Belgian playwright Maurice Maeterlinck. So, who used symbolic settings and characters to explore the unseen forces that shape human destiny. Unseen forces. It means like Kantara, the movie you see. So, you will see that what happened that presents a symbolic. Like you will find out the hero immediately catches some kind of a superpower, isn't it? The tiger that presents, right? And the girl means and the king and the other two groups present in the jungle. So they represent nothing but some kind of a power, superpower, isn't it? So means that that explore what the unseen forces that shape human destiny, isn't it? So latter, and that's called as a Canthra, but at the same time, if you watch the movie called Krish, going to India, you find out, isn't it? So that the modern and this one is the ancient. So later after the two world war, two world war, the two world wars, the absurd, the theater of the absurd, right? So that emerged as another movement. Now we go for the what? Realism, isn't it? Then we talk about expressionism, then symbolism, then we are going for the theater of absurd or absurdism, isn't it? So the theater of the absurd emerged as another movement. So beyond realism, isn't it? So playwrights like Samuel Beckett, Eugene UNESCO, and Jean Genet, right? They created plays that showed the meaninglessness and confusion, right? So, and those of human life in a world that destroyed by war and moral collapse. Right? Um, তার লাস্ট ইউনিট এমন করে
ଆମର ଏଟା ପୁରା ପାଞ୍ଚଟା ନାଇଁ ପରୀକ୍ଷା 650 ପିଲା ୱେଷ୍ଟ କରିବେ ନା ଆପଣ ତକଲିଫ ସେ ଦେଶର ଚେଞ୍ଜ କରି ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି ହଉନି ତ ଏ ବର୍ଷ
Okay, so understood this. So later after two world wars, the theater of the absurd emerged as another movement beyond reality. Playwrights like Samuel Beckett, Eugene Ionesco, and Jean Genet. So they created plays that showed the meaninglessness and confusion of human life in a world destroyed by war and moral collapse. Right. So their plays often lacked what logical plots or clear endings, isn't it? For example, Beckett's Waiting for Godot, which I said was published in the year of 1953. So that portrays two men continuously for someone who never comes. Right. So the two men waiting continuously, endlessly for someone who never comes. Isn't it? So it is a powerful image of human uncertainty and hopelessness. Isn't it? In all total, you can say that realism in European drama was born from a desire to make theatre honest. If I talk about that summary of it, so what I find out that realism in European drama was born from a desire to make theatre honest, truthful, and socially relevant. So it brought the lives of common people to the stage and explored the real issues in a real setting. However, as the world changed and human experiences grew more complex, so you find out that what playwrights begin to experiment with the new forms that went beyond reality. Right. What they do, that they do is symbolism, so imagination, absurdism, to express what lies beneath the surface of reality. So together, these movements expanded the possibilities of what the theatre. So making it a deeper reflection of both the outer world and the inner world. Isn't it? Now, the next that you will find out is called as a tragedy and heroism. Isn't it? Tragedy and heroism in modern European drama. Okay, coming to that tragedy and heroism in modern European drama. What does it mean? Now, modern dramatist learns what tragedy and the hero mean. So, if I say that in classical tragedy, like Greek or Shakespearean plays, heroes were noble figures. Heroes were considered noble figures. So, kings or warriors, so who fell due to fate or due to flaw, right? So due to fate means you understand? So destiny, we can say future or flaw. Flaw is called as a mistake, isn't it? In modern drama, heroes are ordinary people facing social, moral, or emotional struggle, isn't it? So tragedy now shows the conflict between the individual and society, or between personal dreams and art's reality. Isn't it? Like you talk about Ibsen's A Dollhouse A Woman's Fight for Independence, Arthur Wheeler's Death of a Salesman, right? So a common man's downfall in a pursuit of success, isn't it? And modern tragedy that emphasizes inner heroism, courage to question, courage to change, or to stand alone, isn't it? So if I say that the idea of tragedy and heroism has changed greatly over time, especially in modern European drama. In the past, tragedy was associated with a grand character. So kings, warriors, or noble figures who fell from greatness due to fate, you can say, fate, pride, or personal life. So, or you can say a personal flaw. So, this kind of a tragedy can be seen in a Greek plays like Oedipus Rex by Sophocles, where King Oedipus suffers a downfall after unknowingly fulfilling a prophecy, or in Shakespeare's tragedy, such as Macbeth and Hamlet, right? So, where royal figures face destruction because of ambition, doubt, or guilt, isn't it? In these classical works, tragedy often aroused from the struggle between human willpower and divine destiny. So, and the heroic suffering inspired awe means surprise and sadness. So, however, in the modern era, from the late 19th century onwards, dramatists began to redefine what tragedy and heroism mean. The modern world had changed monarchy and the divine fate. Modern modernity, monarchy and the divine fate were no longer central or main part to the people's lives, isn't it? And the focus of drama shifted to what struggles of ordinary individuals. So modern dramatists like Henry Ibsen, Anton Chekhov, and the latter Arthur Miller and you can say that Jean Anoli, believed that tragedy could exist not only in the palaces but also in everyday homes. So the modern stage became a place where ordinary people's conflict, social, moral, or emotional, that could be just as tragic and heroic as those of ancient kings. In modern tragedy, the hero is no longer a royal or noble figure, but an ordinary human being facing the pressure of society, facing the family burden, and self expectation. Those of the things are that the tragic element arises not from fate or gods, but from the individual's inner struggles and the conflict between personal desires and social situations or rules. For example, Henry Gibson's A Doll's House, 1879, the central character Nora is not a queen, not a warrior, not a queen, not a warrior, but a middle class wife, isn't it? Middle class wife. So, and mother, her decision to leave her husband and children in search of what independence shocked the audience of her time, but it also revealed her inner heroism. Also revealed her inner heroism. So the courage to question tradition and take responsibility for her life, whole life, isn't it? Nora's act is tragic. Why? Because it involves pain, it involves sacrifice, right? And social isolation, isn't it? So, but it is also heroic because it represents the victory of what? Truth, victory of self-awareness, victory of decision that she made, right? Similarly, Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman in the year of 1949, that also presents the tragedy of an ordinary American man, isn't it? Willie Loman, so who dreams of success and recognition, but falls or fails to achieve them. Not like the classical hero who fails to or who falls from greatness, isn't it? Willie's tragedy lies in his blind faith in false ideals. The belief that charm and popularity are enough to success. Isn't it? It's a downfall, it's a deeply human and emotional, showing that modern tragedy is about what psychological and social struggle rather than royal destinies. So Miller argued that the common man could be as fit for tragedy as any king because it's a fight to maintain dignity and maintain or meaning in life is equally noble. So it means the author did not make any kind of a partiality with the king with the ordinary man. So both can play the equally noble performance, isn't it? So modern European dramatists also explored what moral and existential heroism. So, like you can say, the courage to face the meaninglessness of life, the courage to face the meaninglessness to life, or stand alone in the face of injustice. So, let's say that in Jean-Paul Sartre's one of the plays called as the No Exist that was published in the year of 1944. So, where the characters are trapped in a room for eternity, right? So forced to confront their guilt and choices, isn't it? So the tragedy here is not caused by gods or fate, but by human freedom, right? And responsibility. So God did not say that you settle yourself in a one room. So it is a choice that you have made, responsibility that you need to present, and freedom. Likewise, Jean Annales Antigone in the year of 1944. Jean Anouilh, so Antigone was again another play in the 1944, reimagines the ancient Greek story to show how standing up against a political power remains an act of modern heroism, even when it leads to death. So, what makes modern tragedy unique is that it no longer desires to inspire fear, so and pity in the traditional sense. Instead, it aims to make the audience reflect on the social forces, social situation, personal decisions, and moral confusion that shape human life. The modern tragic hero often fights against what invisible enemies, social expectation, economic systems, or psychological pressures. So their courage lies not in a victory others or defeat others, but in remaining true to themselves despite failure or suffering. So in this, you will find out tragedy and heroism in modern European drama are defined by realism, moral struggle, and inner strength. The heroes are everyday individuals who show extraordinary courage in facing life's harsh truth, the real reality of the life. So whether it is Nora walking out to her home in Ibsen's plays or Willie Loman confronting his broken dreams in Miller's modern tragedy proves that heroism is not about greatness or victory. It is about the courage to question, to change, and to stand alone in a complex and imperfect world. Isn't it? Now, the theater of the absurd, which is the last, that indicates a form of drama. We'll go to the theater of the absurd. So, it is a form of drama that shows the meaninglessness and the confusion of human existence after World War II. Right. So, the term the theater of the absurd was used for playwrights like Samuel Beckett, Eugene Ionesco, and Jean Genet or Genet. So they believed that life often lacks purpose. Lacks what? Purpose. You don't have, means in a person, we all have a purpose. But some people are called as according to them that life often lacks purpose. So, or logic, or clear answers. Their plays use nonsense dialogue, repetition, and strange situation to show how people search for meaning in a confused world or called as a chaotic world. So, and that's why Samuel Beckett so waiting for Godot. So, where two men wait endlessly for someone who never comes, is nothing but an example. Absurd theater rejects traditional plots and characters. It actually mirrors modern anxiety, so modern isolation and hopelessness, isn't it? So, if I say that the theater of the absurd is a form of drama that came out in Europe after World War II, and it expresses the confusion, hopelessness, and meaninglessness of the human life in a world that appear to have lost its order and values. The horrors of war, the destruction caused by violence, and the loss of faith in religion, politics, and region. So that led many writers to believe that human existence itself was absurd. Human existence itself was absurd. That is, without clear purpose or logic. Why do we fight when we all know that we are all going to die one day? Why do we means greedy for accumulating means, property when we all know that we are unable to take a single penny with us when we die, isn't it? So there is a means without clear purpose or logic. So this belief was closely linked to what existentialist philosophy. That belief was closely linked with what existential philosophy, especially the ideas of Albert Camus. So Albert Camus, not only Albert Camus, but also Jean-Paul Sartre, right? So who said that life has no fixed meaning and that people must create their own purpose in an indifferent universe, right? So the term theater of the absurd was first used by critic Martin Esslin in his 1961 book of the same name, right? Martin Esslin. He used it to describe a group of playwrights, mainly Samuel Beckett, Eugene Ionesco, Jean Genet, and later Harold Pinter. So, who broke away from traditional forms of theatre instead of presenting what logical plots of realistic character. They used to they used the stage to explore the confusion, chaos, and emptiness of modern life. Their plays often show people trapped in meaningless routines, speaking in circles or waiting for something that never happened. So the absurd dramatist believed that ordinary language and traditional storytelling could no longer express what the reality of the modern world. After the devastation of two world wars and the rise of nuclear threat, people, felt isolated, powerless, and uncertain. Right. So the playwrights reflected this sense of homeliness, or sorry, homesick alienation by using usual techniques, repetition, silence, nonsense dialogue, and illogical action. For example, instead of clear storylines, their plays means I'm talking about all these plays, Samuel Beckett, Eugene, and means, other. So their plays often seem to go in circles, showing that life itself has no clear beginning or end. The most famous example you can say Waiting for Godot, written by Samuel Beckett in the year of 1953, a play where two men who are known as Vladimir and Astragon, right? So they wait endlessly for someone named Godot, waiting for Godot, no? Waiting for Godot. So who never arrives. During their waiting, they engage in a meaningless conversation. So what did they do? That they spend their time with a meaningless conversation. Let's say that you two are waiting for Rani or Sunanda. So and they are not coming, and because of their absence, you do start talking about the topic, which is meaningless, isn't it? Similar it happens here also. Repeat actions and struggles to pass time. The play has no traditional plot or resolution. It simply ends as it began or it began. Yet it powerfully captures the human condition. People keep hoping for meaning. People keep hoping for salvation. People keep hoping for change. People keep hoping even when none comes. Right. So the play's empty landscape and repetitive dialogue reflect the spiritual emptiness and uncertainty of post-war humanity. So, similar to that, Eugene Ionesco, so another leading figure of the movement, who wrote plays like The Bald Soprano in the year of 1950. And another one is called as a rhinoceros in the year of 1959. And in the bard soprano, characters speak in cliches and meaningless phrases. Listen to this. Latin research. So meaningless phrases. That shows how everyday communication has become, empty and automatic. In rhinoceros, you would find out ordinary townspeople turn into rhinoceros one by one. So symbolizing how people lose individuality, rhinoceros means lose individuality and blindly follow mass movements, right? So, or ideology, mass ideology or mass movement. So, an idea inspired by the rise of fascism in Europe, fascism, FASCISM. So, Jean Genet, on the other hand, explored identity, power, and illusion in plays such as The Maids, 1947, and The Balcony in the year of 1956. These characters often play roles or perform rituals that blur, that things not clearly visible, the line between truth and pretense, right? So reflecting how unstable and artificial social identities can be. So, all total, if I say the theater of the absurd rejects what? Traditional theater, right? So, it has no clear plot, logical dialogue, or realistic setting. Instead, it uses absurdity itself to show how the absurd nature of human existence. So, the plays are often both tragic and comic at the same time. Audiences may laugh at the ridiculous situation, but beneath the laughter lies a deep sense of sadness and fear about the futility of life, futility, anger of human's life. This mixture of humor and despair is one of the most hitting features of absurd drama. So, in essence, the theater of the absurd shows the or mirrors the modern human condition, that loneliness, confusion, and the endless search for meaning in a world that seems no different. Right? It challenges audiences to think rather than simply watch, asking them to confront uncomfortable truths about life, right? Purpose and communication. By breaking traditions of drama, it opened the new possibilities for artistic expression and remains one of the most powerful movements in 20th century European theatre. Understood? This is what